Yo, yo, yo. What's up, folkers? Snapzilla Gorilla, aka Snap Turtle, aka The Definition, coming at y'all with a short video. So, there's a lot going on with this Wuhan virus, right? You know, it's there's a lot of speculation, a lot of stories behind it, a lot of shit going on, a lot of distraction, I believe. I believe a lot of it's distraction. I believe a lot of it may be real, overblown, understated, who knows? We do know that China is a proud country, and they're not going to give us the full breadth of what's really going on. From what I'm hearing, and I'm going to actually do a presentation. You know, I'm just going by what I've been seeing from different sources. That this virus, this outbreak started weeks before they told us it did. That they're finding that. They're finding that. And then there's like 40 million people being quarantined in China right now. And I don't know if you heard this, but they're unable to evacuate U.S. citizens from China. So, and then I'm hearing there's like 5 cases of the virus here. But, you know, everything should be taken with a grain of salt. And when you look at the symptoms of this disease, it mimics the symptoms of a lot of different diseases that they tell you exist. You know, the fever, you know, the body aches, the headaches, trouble breathing, a lot of mucus. We have to understand that all sickness is mucus.
Continue.
It's a buildup of mucus
10 south.
that overtakes our systems and that sends our immune system into overdrive. So all these symptoms is actually your body fighting the disease. Okay. Now there's other, you know, the fever. The fever occurs when your body's fighting the disease. The headaches, all this stuff is your body fighting. Okay, fighting a foreign invader, essentially. So we have to remember that. We have to remember that viruses can be isolated. Okay, from what I understand, I'm no medical expert. I'm no scientist. But when you do the research, when you look into it, when you look at the studies, you can't really isolate a virus. But it's interesting how they can, you know, they can give you a depiction of what the virus looks like. You know, with the coronavirus, it's a ball with a bunch of little things pointing out, with a bunch of little squigglies pointing out. But where did they get that image from? You know, it's just like when they show you images of the stars and the universe and all this other stuff. They show you what is that? Before, I forgot what that's called. It's like a cloud of dust in space. Nebula. They show you what a nebula looks like. They give you the colors. But you have to understand, when they show you these images in space, they do all kind of shit to it. They add color to it. They add depth. They add things to the image to make it look like something, right? Because all they're getting really is a heat signature with their telescopes. So anyway, moving on from that, you know, viruses are supposedly so tiny. You need an electron microscope to actually see a shape, barely see a shape. You understand what I'm saying? Whereas bacteria is, you know, you don't need an electron microscope. Most bacteria and protists and things like that are a little bigger. You can see them. You can see what they look like. You can see features and shit like that. You can't do that with a virus. But again, moving on from that, we have to understand that this virus could be anything. You understand what I'm saying? They're just calling it a novel coronavirus because we don't have an immunity to it. Well, guess what? When you look at it like that, you don't have an immunity to most viruses. You build immunities by experiencing diseases, and you build up antibodies to help fight diseases in the future. That's how it works. You understand what I'm saying? Now, when you look at the deaths that have occurred because of this flu or virus, you know, how can you really know the real numbers when you look at it in China? Okay, there's so much shit going on with this. They're talking about how this virus came from a lab, all this other shit. You know what I mean? Like, who really knows what's going on? Who really knows what's going on but the Chinese government? We have to pay attention to what we do know and what we don't know, what we're presented, all the different stories we're hearing. We got to be careful. We can't just believe everything that we're seeing and hearing, especially nowadays. There's so many conflicting stories. So, what am I getting at? Well, my next point of this whole thing, okay, if what they say is true, is going on in China, what if something like that happened here? They're quarantining all these people. People have certain things they have to do. They have to go out in masks. They have to carry suitcases, right? They want to go get groceries. They have to carry suitcases. Keep everything in a suitcase and travel with suitcases. They can't drive. They can't do any of that. They're essentially on lockdown. I saw a video of this dude out in China. He lives in Wuhan or whatever. And he was showing you what he had to do to go outside. He had to put on 2 masks, right? He had to carry his suitcase. He had to get all bundled up. And he had to walk to where he was going. There was no one on the streets. Apparently there's like so many million people in this town or in this state or whatever you call it, province, whatever the fuck they call it in China. And man, you know, you have to go out and travel and get food damn near every day. You have to go out and get water every day. You know why? Or they did. Because they weren't prepared. They were not prepared. And that's the point of this video. You know, believe what you want about the coronavirus. I'm not going to speculate too much on it. You know, when mainstream media push it out, again, I take it with a grain of salt. I don't really put too much stock in it. That's just me. You know what I mean? So, the question is, if something like that were to happen out here, if, you know, the people that brought the virus over here somehow got blown up and it started traveling and spreading everywhere, would you be prepared if that outbreak reached your town? And do you have water? Do you have food stored up? Do you have dry foods? Do you have canned foods? Do you have a generator? How much water do you have? Do you have a lot of bottles of water for when you want to travel out? See, do you have bottles of water? And do you have a big 50-gallon drum of water? Do you have 2 50-gallon drums of water that you put bleach and iodine in every now and then to keep it from being overgrown with bacteria?
The exit on the right.
Are you doing those things? Are you training? Are you fight training? Are you going to the range? Do you have weapons? Do you have ammo stored up? Are you prepared to defend your stores? What I mean by your stores is your water stores, your food stores, your ammo stores, clothing. What kind of clothing you got? Now, with the clothing, it's good to wear cotton. I like to wear nothing but cotton. Most of the time I like to wear cotton, right? Because it's not conductive, all right? These microfibers that they make now, these polyesters and all this other shit, the synthetic fibers are highly conductive, and you got all these cell phone towers and you got all these electromagnetic fields around you that will attract you know, that will be attracted to the synthetic fibers if you wear synthetic fibers. Now, so anyway, and that can be a problem, you know, because then it can get to your sweat glands. Your sweat glands are like mini antennas. But in a time of a crisis, do you have synthetic material clothing set aside? Why is this important? Because it's tougher material. It won't get eroded. It won't get eaten up by moths. You know, and it'll last longer. it's a longer lasting material. Like, do you have a Nomex suit, a flame retardant Nomex suit? Do you have a welder's leather, things like that can help protect you in the elements? Do you have a containment suit that you can give, just something that you can what they call that, Tyvek suits? Do you have Tyvek suits? Do you have masks? I'm not just talking about a regular paper mask that you put over your face. I'm talking about a respirator. Do you have respirators? Do you have canisters saved
Next
up?
exit on the
You know what I mean?
and
Do you have emergency toilets?
Right turn.
Do you have cat litter? What's the cat litter for? Well, if you have an emergency toilet, it's like a little black bucket, with a little toilet seat on it, and then you can put boo-boo bags in there, shit that you can poop in, and the bag blocks the bacteria and the smell. But also what you want to do is throw kitty litter in there. You throw kitty litter in there, and that'll help absorb all the boo-boo and all that stuff, and you can keep it somewhere until you're ready to go somewhere and burn all of it. Are you prepared to do all that? That's my question. Because there are many things that can bring us to the point of
slight right and then right turn.
The infrastructure breaking down, and an outbreak of a disease is one of them. So you want to be prepared for something like that, and you don't have to do it all at once. You can build slowly. You can start getting these things slowly. You can start getting your canned goods. You can start getting your dried food goods. You can start getting your emergency toilet. You can start storing up your water. You can start. You can get fire starter stuff. You can get propane tanks. You can get, a propane fire pit. You know what I mean? I got a propane fire pit, just in case, you got to cook outside. You know what I mean? And you're traveling. What do you have? Are you prepared? That's my question. Are you going to be ready in the event that systems break down? Emergency services aren't going to come to your rescue. You don't know when you're going to get your next meal. Are you and your family? You know what I mean? Do you see, initially when something happens, a disaster happens, there's going to be a lot of chaos, a lot of craziness going on
West Carson Street
in the city around, especially if you're in a big city. So you don't want to have to travel so much outside of your home to go get shit. You want to be able to stay right there where you at. Let shit die down a little bit. Be ready to defend your property. Be ready to defend your domain. And by having the weapons and the ammunition, the melee weapons and things like that, you want to have that to defend, because and you want to keep a low profile before and after. Unless you have neighbors that you're close with, and you guys can all band together and form a coalition of survivors. You know what I mean? In case something happens, you guys maybe block off your block. You know what I mean? You seal off your block and protect it while shit's going on. If you had got it with your neighbors like that, and that's why I feel like, that's why mechanical solidarity is so important. Because mechanical solidarity dictates that everybody has to work together as a unit to make your town or your village operate in function. You know what I mean? Because let's say because you have more mechanical solidarity, like back in the day when there were smaller towns, before all the industrialization and all these big cities started popping up, you had more mechanical solidarity. Everybody worked together. Everybody had a function. You had you had people, and they would trade with each other. You'd have the general store manager. You'd have the guy that grew the corn. You had the guy that raised the sheep and the cows, and you had the guy that would irrigate and all this other shit. Everybody, it was a function. It was like an ant farm. You know what I mean? And if you can build something like that in your community, when shit goes down, it's not so bad. You can make it work. Just like the Amish. If you look at the Amish, they operate in mechanical solidarity. You know what I mean? And they're isolated. If something happened, they don't really get sick. You know what I mean? So if you look at them, you know, that's a perfect example of mechanical solidarity at work and working. It actually works. I mean, it just, they've been doing it for a long time. So if you look at them, you look at different communities like that, they make it work. They don't rely too much on technology, so it wouldn't be too much of a shock to them if all the systems broke down, they lost the internet, they lost electricity. They can still make it happen. I feel like we should be able to move back toward that, because how long is this shit gonna work? I don't know. You know. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Keep an eye out. I'm gonna look more into this coronavirus thing and see all the information I can get, see what makes sense, try to connect some dots, and yeah, we'll go from there. All right. Anyway, holla at your boy. Talk to you later.